Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about accounting in QuickBooks. This seminar is more of an overview around the different types of setting up of QuickBooks, navigating through the through QuickBooks Online as well as desktop. They do have two different versions, how you input transactions, and also kind of going into some of the details of where the vendor screens are, customer screens, the chart of account. Some of these terms may be kind of new to you, but I'll explain as we get into it. Running of various reports and what's important, why it's important to do some of these things as it relates to your accounting, especially when you're a new business. It's extremely important when you first start off with a new business to have proper books and records, as we call it, proper accounting of your business, your income, your expenses that are going in and out of your business. It's extremely important to make sure for multiple reasons. One reason is obviously when you prepare your taxes, you're better prepared to get your tax return prepared by a tax professional, or if you do it yourself, you have the information to be able to prepare your taxes. The other key reason is you need to know how you're performing when it comes to your specific business. Too many times I'll hear this where I'll have clients, coming in, new clients coming in saying, hey, I need, these types of services. And I'll say, how long have you been doing it? Well, I've been doing my business for a number of years. So I'll ask them, oh, okay, so how do you, how much revenue do you do? And do you know how much expenses do you're spending, or what's your biggest expense? And oftentimes, I'll be like, well, I have no idea. I wait till the end of the year and I'll put all the information together and give it to my accountant, to do the taxes. So that is not really a good way of running a business. You want to know on a monthly basis how you're performing. It's extremely important to make sure that that on a monthly basis, where you spent your money, where you're spending the most amount of money, comparing, and also, how much revenue brought in. So, and the best way to do that is using some type of software to do that. So let's go through what that kind of looks like when it comes to tracking of all your income and expenses. So as I had stated, one of the best tools out there to use is QuickBooks. There's other software, but QuickBooks is by far the most popular and the most common software utilized. So as you see on this screen here, this is an online version of QuickBooks. This is a sample company. Anybody can access it. You just Google, QuickBooks sample company, and you'll be able to get in and you can play around with it. So that's really all it is just a sample. And another way of doing this is through desktop. This is the desktop version of QuickBooks. Now, there's advantages, disadvantages of using both, of course. So, with the desktop, you just need to make sure that, you actually have a computer dedicated to use it. Now, that's the one, because disadvantage is wherever you install it is the only place you can use it. Whereas online, you can pretty much use any computer and go online and do it, So that's what makes it very easy. So here's online, you could be on any computer, go online, do your accounting and do it. Whereas the desktop, it has to reside on a specific computer. Now, the desktop version compared to the online version, we accountants love to use the desktop version because it has far more robust features than online. And there's a lot of there's a lot of nuances that I'm not a very big fan of. Some accountants are, some aren't, but it depends. So, but I will go walk you through kind of the differences. I mean, the look and feel is somewhat the same on certain things, but it gets you there. One thing, online, there is a monthly subscription fee depending on what level of service you need. So that's the only bad thing is that the more you want to add on, the more costly it is, more expensive per month. I mean, you can go on QuickBooks website, they'll show you what it is, whereas on a desktop, you pay an annual fee one time and you get all the features, of the QuickBooks. So that is one nice advantage of that. If you're savvy enough to run payroll, you can do payroll online and on desktop. I would not recommend it. The tax implications are huge if you don't do things accurately and timely and file the appropriate tax returns. So, but there are some people who are pretty good at it, can do it themselves. But QuickBooks does offer the opportunity to run payroll on your own if you want to. So you could do that. So let's talk about online. So when you first log in, this is what they call a dashboard. This is a landscaping service, as you can see. One of the neat things about QuickBooks is whatever, you can link your bank account directly with online. It's a little bit easier to QuickBooks. So what it does, for example, here's they have 3 accounts here. They have a credit card, savings account, and checking account. If I go into my checking account here, give me a second. It brings in, what it does is it goes out to the bank account. You put in your user ID and password, and on a regular basis, it pulls the data in and into QuickBooks. And it is, if you're doing it yourself, it is your job to go in and start, categorizing or allocating what these, transactions are. So anything that's received typically ends up being revenue, unless you get a refund. Like if you bought something, getting a refund, different story. So you would literally have to go line by line and allocate them. So this can be a little bit time consuming, but you can do it. QuickBooks does have feature of memorizing transactions. So if there's a common purchase that you make or a common, customer that you are getting payments from, it does have feature to be able to recognize and auto allocate. To be very careful, though, auto allocating can be a deadly tool if it's not done correctly, and everything can be misclassified. So you have to be very careful on that. So this one says Books by Bessie. It's defaulting on categorized income. I see this oftentimes from clients where they'll give me they're doing the QuickBooks transactions on their own, their accounting, and I'll get a bunch of, I'll see their P&L or profit and loss statement, and I'll see a bunch of transactions in uncategorized income, because I can tell what they did. They just saw it come in and hit accept, which is what you do not want to do, So I'm just going to say sale of product income. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, if you feel like it's, sale of my pants, you can call that too, whatever you want to call it. But as long as it's revenue, it's revenue. You just want to make sure it's categorized correctly. So I'll just click add. And then when you click add, what it does is it actually is putting it in your checking account as a deposit. So that's it. And you do the same thing across the board, line by line. And this one says a rental, $200. And then looks like there's a rental for $1,200. So it looks like maybe might be a vendor. I don't know, that they paid, and looks like they maybe refunded $200. So it depends, so you can allocate. You can find this vendor. Let's call it a rental. So this is a good example where a rental does not exist. Do you want to create a rental? Yes, I do. I'm going to say, okay, this is the name. This is what the display is. The vendor, this is called is a rental. You can fill in all this stuff if you have the information. I'm not going to worry about it. Just say save, and it's going to create a new vendor called a rental. And then I'm going to say it's some type of rental expense. So we'll just say it's equipment rental. It's an expense. And then we're going to add it. Now it's going to go in there and add it. So now let's just go to the QuickBooks desktop to kind of give you an idea what that looks like as well. So now with this, it's a little bit unique. This is the dashboard, just like the dashboard that you saw over here. Okay, it looks a little bit different. Now with the QuickBooks, when it comes to transactions, pulling them from the various banks or credit cards or whatever, it's not like online where it's constantly, because it's connected online, it can in the background just pull data. Here, you actually have to log in to desktop and then pull it. So it's a little bit of manual. So they do have the capability where if you go in, where's my bank feeds on here? So it looks, there's always in the bank feeds, there's always transactions in there. So see, see it says download transactions. You can connect it so it goes out and pulls it. Not all bank accounts have the feature to be able to do this through the desktop. So you can always go online to your bank account and download the QuickBook format file, for the statement period, or how are you doing it for the period that you're wanting to download the transactions, and then import them. So you can import them manually here by going utilities, import, and web. It's called a Web Connect file. When you click it, it pops up a menu, like where is the file located. You can go in the folder that it downloaded and do it and pull it in. So here you can see that there's one transaction in here. So we can go in and see, oh, what transaction is it? Let's see, we have to allocate. Oh, it looks like it's already been auto allocated. So this is what I wanted to kind of also talk about is it can auto, if a transaction already exists in your checking account. Let's say you went in and wrote a check and paid it and put it in your QuickBooks. And when it clears, it knows, hey, check number 1234, here it is from Mendoza Mechanical. I'm gonna, connect, it is in here already. I'm gonna connect it, and it automatically recognizes it and says it's auto. So that's what that means. And this happens to be a credit card account. So it was already in here. So I'll say accept. So it's very similar to the online where you have to go in and accept transactions. Here's another one. This is another account that they have. Oh, well, okay. Looks like this. By the way, this is a sample file. It's also the landscaping company. I'm trying to keep it consistent so everybody can, you guys can see the consistency in, the process, and as well as understand some of these things. So that's kind of how, transactions come in. You have to allocate. The same process is the same as I showed online, where you have to go in, input the vendor. If it doesn't exist, if you type it in, automatically comes up, oh, okay, Chipotle. Oh, it's a meal. You got to put all that in. So those are some of the things that are extremely important to understand and make sure that that it's properly allocated. Okay, I'm just gonna peruse through some of the things, questions that have been posed. Okay, so some of the things that the features that QuickBooks has, as you can see on the left hand side, are your menus. I talked about payroll. You can process payroll right through QuickBooks, and on desktop, it's the same exact thing. So here, so by the way, whether it's online or desktop, it's extra to pay for the payroll feature. Okay, so if you don't have it, these icons do not exist. There'll be an icon that says activate payroll. That's what it will say. So that's something you have to be conscious of and aware of, that this is not free and included. It's part of the additional features, okay. And then let me go back online, and then same thing with the payroll features here, same exact thing. If the icon on the left hand side exists, but if you need the feature, you'll have to pay for it. And the subscription varies depending on number of employees. So here's where online and desktop varies. Online, they charge you per employee. They have a base fee, and then they charge you per employee. On desktop, it's not like that. You pay a one-time monthly fee, and they do not charge you per employee, because on the desktop, it's just not possible. So that's the difference. So you can, between online, some people like to do online because it is much easier to do. You don't have to, can do it from any computer and so on. And there's a little bit of setup involved in a desktop, so like I said, leave it. I would highly recommend leaving, if you're going to if you want to do payroll yourself, online is actually not bad. Online payroll is not too bad. You could do it more easily than using desktop. It's easier, honestly, online payroll for if you're trying to do it on your own. We prefer desktop as accountants because it's got more features. It's probably the only thing for us. Okay, so all right, that is a lot to take. I'm going to give a few minutes for people to kind of go through what we've got. So right now, we've talked about navigation and input of transactions. In the QuickBooks setup, so when you first sign up for QuickBooks, it'll ask you what kind of company are you, or like, what kind of business do you have? Do you have a retail? Are you a service? Or, because based off of that, it will create what is called a chart of accounts. Okay. A chart of accounts are a list of accounts that are used in, to allocate in business, like for business. For example, do you have a checking account? Do you have a savings account, as you can see here? Okay. Do you, do you have cost of goods? Like if you're like a retail shop, you buy goods, sell it. So it'll create those accounts. So if it's a retail shop, you'll create that category, for example, so you can do it. If a category doesn't exist, you can always create one. Okay. Because it does create based off of the type of business you are. And it's not, it's not all inclusive. So if you like to customize, you can always create it, and you can do like online, you can just create a new one. I mean, this is, yeah. And then you can say, what kind of account is it? Oh, it's an income account, or if it's an expense account, you can just say it's an expense account specifically, and then call it whatever it is that you want to call it. Ignore some of these are general topics that they say that they want to categorize it to, but you can create new ones. Like, okay, I'm going to say it's, let's say it's an auto account. What am I going to call it? Automobile. Look at that. There it is. Popped up. It looks like this one is already exists. But if I was to create something completely different, let's just say I want to call it other miscellaneous service cost. I want to say other expense, save. So it'll create a category called other expense. In the future, I can allocate it to that. That's how that works. On the desktop, it's no different. Here's your chart of accounts. It looks very similar. Boom, boom, boom. Everything's here. Online, I mean, desktop, I think is easier. You create a new account. Oh, what kind of account is it? It's an expense account. Create, continue, and then it says, okay, I want to create an account called other expenses. See, it's categorized as expense. Save, done. Oh, so here's, it says the name is already in use. So it looks like there's an account already called other expense. So I'll just say whatever expense. And just create it. It created an expense account called whatever expense account. So everybody, I think, gets an idea of what this is. Okay. All right. So that's kind of, so we talked about, let's go here. We talked about the chart of accounts and the setup. The setup for on desktop is going to be the same. As we talked about, it'll ask you all the questions, and then it'll create all these we call them chart of accounts, or accounts that you may need. Not all of them may be utilized, but some of them would be utilized when it comes to the use of this. Okay. Now let's talk about reports. Okay. So let's actually talk about, I did talk about vendors. So let me just show you where that is before I go any further. You can access it from up here, Vendor Center. So it gives you a list of all the vendors. Okay. Here's all the vendors, or on the left-hand side, the pane here. Click it, it takes you there too. You can also customize it. If you go down, if you don't want all the stuff here, you can just remove some of the stuff that pops up. Oh, I don't want the credit card. I don't need add payroll. I don't need services. I don't need the feedback support. Oh, I don't need the backup feature. I don't need find. I don't need remind, blah, blah, blah. So you can just get rid of all the stuff that you don't need. And then the vendors are kind of neat. You can see them here, and you can do a search. And look, if you have hundreds of vendors you need, you want to find one. I want to look for Chase. If you hit search, oh, here's Chase. It'll list, on the left hand, on the right hand side, it'll show you all the, transactions you've had with Chase. Here's Gas, all the transactions you've had with them. You'll see them on the left hand side. Customers, for those who may utilize this feature to issue invoice, you can do invoicing right through here. And create invoices like you see here. Okay. We utilize this in our company. We send out invoices with QuickBooks directly to our clients. You can create invoices and send them, email them directly from here. You can integrate this with Outlook or whatever email service and directly emails it right from there. It's very slick. You can set up templates, general templates of that sends out the email saying, here's invoice blah 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 and all this stuff. It's really slick, and it also has a feature within QuickBooks if you want to take payments via the invoicing. So if you send them an invoice, it sends them a link also with the invoice. You can click it and pay, and the individual can pay by credit card if you decide to take credit card or by direct ACH. It's very slick. It does make things easier, and then as soon as they pay it, you get a notification that the payment is made, and you can track all your invoices in here as well, which is kind of neat. So under reports, if you go to receivables, you can do an aging, which is kind of neat, and this is why it's important when it comes to utilizing a software. You can see, age it. How current are my customers? Is anybody past due? If here's 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90. It's showing as of today, looks like everybody's current. You can see and how much everybody owes. It's very, very, very neat. I love the customer section, but it's very important to utilize this correctly. Oftentimes we find people not doing this part of the feature very accurately. They'll have, when a payment is made, you have to make sure you match the payment to the invoice. If you don't do that, you could potentially have invoices that are still outstanding, but you got the payment. Okay, so it's very important to do that. Online, it's the same exact thing. So if you wanted to see the vendors, it's under here, under expenses, called vendors. Kind of weird the way they did it. I don't know why they did it that way, but they put it there. Here's that A-rental that I created, and if you want to do a search for a vendor, you can just type it in here and it'll come up, and then it'll be all here. And then if you want to do, you can see here that there's particular payments outstanding. So if you have invoices that you receive from vendors, you can input them here. So then you can track what's outstanding, what's payable, and then send it out. And then not send it out, but process it, record it within QuickBooks, so you can see, okay, I have about $5,000, due. Paid in the last 30 days. I have unpaid of $840 in the last 365. Unbilled is about 120. So it's really neat what they do online. And the same thing with the desktop too. It does the same thing with the vendors. You can run a report to see how old some of the, your payments are or whatever. So let's go to the customers screen. This is no different than what we talked about earlier. Here's customers. Here's a list of all the customers and the outstanding balances that would possibly be there in this. So the one nice thing about online is it kind of gives you a dashboard here at the top, whereas desktop, oops, let me give me that. Whereas desktop doesn't really have that. Oops, sorry about that, guys. Desktop really doesn't have that, okay? So like a dashboard, it's just, this is what it is. So let's go to, okay, so let's, and then when we talked about reporting, it has a similar type of reporting as desktop. Here is the report. I mean, it breaks it down kind of business overview, who owes you, meaning this is the accounts receivable. You can mark them favorites, like as you can see here, and they'll appear here. So right now there's only 3 favorites. So if you want to do an aging summary, you can just click it and it'll give you an aging summary as of today. Okay, 8/9/2023. So it tells you, oh, here's current. Here's 1 to 30 days old. Here's 30 to 60. Here's 60 to 90, and anybody who's over 90 days. Okay. And then the neat thing, and I'll show this on the desktop, is if you wanted to hover over any one of these particular customers, if you notice, it'll turn into a hand. If you click it, it'll actually take you right to the details, and you can actually click the particular invoice, and it'll take you right to that invoice. Okay. Boom, there is your invoice. Online, that's online. Let's look at desktop. Okay, we're going to aging summary. As you can see, it's the same exact methodology. It's kind of in here, you kind of change it into a magnifying glass and you double click it. That's about, oh, okay, the $3,170.96 composes of 2 invoices. Okay, so if you wanted to look at the detailed invoice, you can just double click it and it takes you right to that actual invoice. Here's the invoice. The neat thing also about both online and desktop is if you're doing invoicing, you put your logo on there if you have a logo, and send it out. You have to set it all up, but it is doable. It's very neat. They do a pretty good job. We do a preview. Let me see if we can do a preview here. Here's what an invoice would look like that would go out. If you had a logo, you can put it up here. You can customize this. We've done that in our firm, customize it so it properly puts a logo and all this other stuff, additional information on there. So it's very neat. This setup is extremely important to be done correctly. You have to actually set it up properly to do it. So as you can see, if back here, they've done that already, but I just want to make sure you guys understand that it is extremely important to make sure there's a back end setup. It's a little bit more complicated piece that you don't have the time to discuss today, but it can do it. Okay, so here's the dashboard that that kind of, I won't call it exactly the same, but it's kind of like what we saw here on the customer side. So here's the customers. Here shows all the list of customers that are here and the amounts that are paid outstanding. So desktop does something similar. What it does is when I went to that dashboard on there, it tells you here's unbilled, this is time and expense, open invoices, anything overdue, and then all the invoices are currently outstanding. Okay, it shows everything. Here's the invoice number, date, the date issued, the due date, amount, what's the open balance. It is, and then it tells you it's open. It's kind of slick, and then you can filter it. Like only one for one customer. Do I have anything? Oh, that's what I have. So it's kind of neat. It does do a pretty good job. There's a lot of similarities in this, and it's all about preference at the end of the day when it comes down to what you want to do. Okay. Hopefully, this is making sense. And then also, let us. So we talked about customers, and then we talked about expenses, vendors, and and then let's talk about reports here. Okay. All right. So like I said, these are the various reports that we have available to us on desktop or online. Here's company financials, P&L, profit and loss. If I use the word P&L, that's what it means. Apologize if I'm using abbreviation a little bit, a lot, So, excuse me. So then under the P&L, as I had mentioned, is extremely important, like I had mentioned previously, to make sure that you're monitoring your financials on a regular basis. So what does that mean to monitor? You have to look at the P&L every month once you've done the allocation of all your transactions. Okay, it's useless if you have not input everything and then everything is just still sitting there waiting to be allocated. So let's just look at this as of last month. It tells you, ignore the dates. This is a sample file example anyway, so just remember that at the end of the day. As you can see, there's income. Okay, and in this particular sample file, they wanted to break down the income on various different areas. So some people, like in this landscaping, or should I say, landscaping business, they wanted to break down the income in even further, like, oh, how much did I spend in materials? How much was in labor? But in the end of the day, it was all under income. So when they issued invoices, they kind of broke down the invoice into various categories and automatically shows you, oh, okay, looks like I had $11,000 in installation income, all from labor. So, and then of course, as I had mentioned previously, is cost of goods. Cost of goods could be you know, a number of things for a landscaper, like they're buying materials for, you know, for landscaping. You know, maybe they bought trees, bushes, brushes, you know, and then they sold them. They buy them for 100, some for 125. It's all part of cost of goods. And then you can see under the expenses, you know, they broke down, where did it go? Further, you know. Now this is, you know, you can, this I'm not a big fan of the way they did it here, but you can set up any you want. They create subcategories, as we like to call them, under expenses. I prefer not to create subcategories under expenses. Each expense should be separated out. It's a big pain in the butt to have it like this. The management of it is a huge pain. Now, if you wanted to, you can create an expense category called automobiles, and then if you want to have within automobiles, like automobile expense, like say gas or repairs, that makes sense. Or like here, you have a separate insurance category under, you know, like as an expense. Then you have disability insurance, liability, workers' comp. That makes sense. But this I wouldn't do. Like how they did it, not the best. But you guys get the idea. You know, so that's one of the things is setting up of QuickBooks is also important to make sure it gives you the data you need, the analysis. The other neat thing you can do, I love this feature. When you click customize, you can compare it to previous. So this is November 2025. It's comparing to November 2024. And I wanted to see the difference. So you can see, oh, it looks like last year they did only $730 and this year they've done 23. So 23K, 23,000. So that tells me that, wow, okay, they're probably a new business if they only did $730 last year in income. But it gives you a good opportunity to see your income, your spending habits, you know, comparison. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I spent this much on meals. I got to really cut back, you know, stop going out. So there's a lot of things that come through, you know, when it comes to, this is a very, very, very good tool, extremely good tool. So you can do the same thing on the online profit and loss. It's no different. It looks very much similar. Here's a breakdown. And online, they've done the same damn thing, combined them. Not a big fan. And they broke it down, of course. As you can see, it's a landscaping service. And then the same exact thing, you can do a comparison, previous year, dollar change, and run the report on a cash basis. Okay, I'm not going to go into the difference between cash and accrual, but most everybody's cash, meaning what that means. I'll do quick explanation what the difference is. Cash means you only record expenses when you pay it. You only record income when you receive it, like physically take possession of the money. That's cash basis. Accrual gets a little bit more complicated, but just to give you an idea, most everybody's cash. So this does the same thing. Here's a comparison. So as you can see in this comparison, they had nothing last year. So obviously they're a brand new business in this situation. So it's really very, very helpful. All right, so let's check in and see what we've talking about. Okay, we've talked about reports, customers, vendors, chart of accounts. Let's talk about checking account. Okay, what does that look like? So if we go into our chart of accounts, which has list of accounts, here's a checking account. When you click view register, people are probably, you know, probably have seen a checkbook, and you know, you input, you know, in your checkbook, here's the money that came in, record $100. Here's the money that went out, you record the money going out, and so on. Those are all the different things that kind of do things, you know. They're going in and out, in and out. You can, looks very much like a checkbook, not very much different than what you've probably seen. But the ultimate thing here to remember is making sure you're inputting things correctly. So these are things in here. So what we can do is, this says add a check, or you can, if you drop down, if you want to just say add an expense, you can do that. It doesn't have to be a check. And we'll put today's date in. And let's see, what we'll call it. Let's say ARC Consulting, okay? Writing ARC Consulting, we're going to record a payment from ARC Consulting. This vendor doesn't exist, so we want to save it, create it. We're going to pay ourselves $10,000, and we're going to allocate it to an expense, okay? So this is considered a professional fee, and guess what? Under professional fees, there's already a category called accounting. Okay, you create it and then you click save. So when this records it in QuickBooks. Now, once the payment clears, what you normally, if you have the bank feeds, the bank account connected to QuickBooks, it will bring in the transaction from your bank account directly in here and automatically match it. As when we talked about previously, there's an auto match you saw on the desktop. It's the same exact thing here. So I'll give you, they had some examples in here. So as you can see, these are transactions currently already in QuickBooks. It said match found, match found, match found. That means these were already QuickBooks and automatically matched it when the transaction cleared the bank, whether it's a deposit or a payment. Okay, and match, you know, if you click match, you want to make sure, yeah, it's the right one. Sometimes you have duplicate transactions. Not, I'm calling duplicate in the sense that you could have more than one transaction of the same amount. They're both accurate, but you want to make one's, let's say from July, one's from June. And it's like, oh, they're making a June payment, not July payment. So you want to make sure, or clear that one. So you want to make sure it's allocated correctly. You click match, it automatically records it into the checking account or the check register, however you want to call it. So that's one piece that you have to be aware of. And then you have to make sure that if you, let's say you want to do a deposit, you do a deposit, payee, customers, let's just say Amy's Bird Sanctuary, paid them $100. You put in, $100. And this happens to be some type of revenue. So expenses are popping up. You have to be careful. You don't want to allocate it as an expense because it's revenue. You know, I mean, normally if you do this regularly, you'll know what to put it to. We'll just say it's design income. Okay. You design something and you say it records it there. Here it is. It's $100. And like I said, when it clears the bank, the deposit, you will see it here. Okay. Now, the other key and important feature I wanted to talk about, which oftentimes people never do this, is reconciling. Okay. Your checking account, not just your checking account, also your credit card account. And this feature exists in QuickBooks. Now, it's only as good as the user if they know what they're doing. Okay. When this pops up, that means it's never been reconciled. Okay. So checking account. This is the beginning balance 5,000. I'm just going to make up something number here for now, 10,000. And you have to have your bank statement available. Let's just say it was July 31st, 2023. Start reconciling. So then what you have to do is extremely important, is compare what's in your checking account to what cleared in your bank statement and knock it down, like check it off one by one. You look in your bank statement. Yes, this $300 cleared, check off. Yep, this $175 cleared, check off. As you can see up here, the numbers change. The ultimate goal, see, there's a difference. This should say 0. Okay, if it doesn't say 0, that means a transaction isn't in here, or you have a transaction that you checked off that you shouldn't have. Could be a combination of things, you know. So if you hit this button right here, it checks them all. Yes, I want to check them all. It's telling me I'm off by $8,700. Obviously, it's going to be off because I just made up a number, ending balance number. I don't know what it is. So that's the key. But you do have to make sure, because if you don't do this, your actual financials are not accurate at all. You don't even have the right numbers. The report that you run here of your P&L may not even be accurate. We've had clients where they've had deposits in there twice, didn't even know. And, you know, they made a deposit and the deposit, it came up, you know, they accidentally input the transaction twice, never reconcile the account. You know, they do their accounting on their own. They want to do it, you know, they don't want to have somebody do it for them, which is totally fine. And then we prepare their taxes. We don't know. You know, we assume it's accurate. We get the details of the financials that we need to prepare the tax return, and then we prepare it. And later on, you know, they decide that they want to have somebody do it. We take over their accounting, find all these errors, and then have to amend the tax return, cost them more money because now you have to pay us to, you know, go back, change your tax return for the business. Then you have to change your tax return for your personal. it adds up. So it's best to, just have somebody do it if you are not very good at it, or if you don't have the, time or anything to devote to doing this, because to do it accurately, it takes time to do this. And we do this day in, day out. At least my team does. Obviously, I understand this very well, but it's extremely important to make sure that it is done accurately. Okay. All right. So let's stop here and let's take some questions if anybody has any, because it's a lot to kind of absorb, especially it's probably the first time that you guys are probably going through this. So let's take on some questions related to this or anything else that anybody might have.
Okay, there's a question for us here at BACP. Please send an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. And now the certificate program has been, we do it's electronically. So you should be signing up electronically and requesting credit that way through chicago.gov/BACP certificate. Okay, Trek, this like it's for you. Any chance you can lower the resolution on your shared screen so we can see the text? It's very
lower the resolution, did you say?
Yeah, they were saying it was very small.
Okay. I mean, on the side, well, okay. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I mean, this is how it's presented on the screen. I mean, let me see if I can. I would have to be quite sure if I can maybe zoom in more. I don't know if that helps.
I thought it was fine on my end.
Yes, it could be maybe I just zoomed in. That's all I did here. I don't know. Maybe it could be a resolution setting on your computer, possibly. Yeah. If good to hear,
Next question, how do I define a business where I'm employed part-time as a teacher and a freelance designer? I have deductions that can apply in both categories, such as art supplies and software purchases. I'm wondering how do I wrangle all the various ways I spend money? Receipts through email account, Venmo, credit card purchases, bank account, etc.
So your question is, how do you manage that? Is that what you're trying to ask? I'm not understanding or are you accounting for it? Because it sounds like you're getting expenses in different ways and you want to know how you manage the receipts part. I need a clarification on that one.
Can vendors be associated automatically with a chart of accounts or manually with multiple accounts?
And vendors are input. And I'm not sure what you're asking. Can they be associated with a chart of accounts? That doesn't. Vendors are input here, and whenever transaction, if you have a vendor you have to make a payment for, in your checking account, you would assign it to that vendor. Like I made a payment to so and so, as I had shown over here. All you do is you go in and input a vendor. I mean, today's date 08/09/23. We're just going to create this vendor and then pay $100 and allocate it to professional fees, accounting. That's how that works. But I'm not quite sure about what you mean by auto. There's no such thing as auto creating or auto allocating here. In the bank feeds, when a vendor is paid, if it doesn't exist, it just doesn't create it automatically. You have to create it and then allocate it.
Next question. I think you just need to make the screen of size. Let me see something. Is that better? If I'm adjusting the screen size.
Okay, on your side, okay.
Can repeat customers have invoices match with their individual account?
We can repeat.
Yeah,
Customers
can
have,
repeat customers have invoices match with their current individual accounts?
I'm not sure what that question means. Can they repeat customers have it match? I mean, when it comes to customers, if you have a customer that's created in here, and you're issuing invoices through QuickBooks, I'm not sure what you mean by individual customers. I mean, if they're individual names, that's how it would be here. And then you're issuing invoices through here. When they make a payment, you're allocating. So I'm not quite sure what you mean, but that's not, you have to elaborate, but that's, hopefully I answered the question, but I don't think I did.
Can we set our own chart of accounts, such as categories and subcategories?
Yes, you do. You can do it yourself. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the QuickBooks, when you select a type of business you are, it will automatically assign some, and then you can delete them if you don't want them. If you want to say, okay, I don't want to have, so hold on a second, I don't want to have this the maintenance repair or whatever, you can delete it, and you can create it like as I had shown before. You just create new chart of account, create an whatever, let's just say expense account, and so on. You just create your own, if it's a balance sheet or whatever.
How do you add a liability long-term?
How do you add a long-term liability? I mean, it's just through the chart of accounts. Year, new, long-term. There you go. And then you have to call it whatever you want, whatever the liability,
How do you reconcile credit card charges in QuickBooks?
Well, it's the same feature as I had mentioned previously online and desktop. You just, here's a credit card. You have to do the same exact thing. You have to reconcile. You got to put in the ending balance, and let's just say $10,000. It's no different than what I showed with the credit card. I'm sorry, with the checking account. You have to go line by line, check them off with whatever's cleared. The same concept, no different.
Can I use this software for multiple businesses?
Of course. So online, so let's talk about desktop. Desktop, you can create new companies, okay, and save them in a folder. Online, so this is the nice thing about desktop. You pay one fee for this desktop, and you can have, say, 5 companies. You can, and pay one fee. Online, you have to pay a fee for each company. You have to create a new one for each one. ABC Company A, ABC Company B, ABC Company C. You got to create it each one.
Is there a more extended course on QuickBooks?
Yeah, so I mean, so this obviously session is more high level to get everybody feet wet, understanding, and kind of encourage people like yourself to look into doing it. Yeah, there are tutorials online, YouTube videos, things like that you can actually take. And I know that local, probably community colleges also offer detailed courses as well.
How can I incorporate intercompany loans and make it clean on my books with the online version?
Could you repeat that again?
How can I incorporate intercompany loans and make it clean on my books with the online version?
Okay, well, That's a little bit of a loaded question. That's a little bit more complicated than probably have discussion. But I mean, if you have intercompany loan, sounds like you have more than one company. You just have to make sure that they're in balance, really. If one says, if one company A says they are owed 100 grand from company B should say 100 grand that they're owed to company A, you know? But you just have to make sure it's properly reconciled.
Can you delete a chart of account without losing expense details? Or can you change the chart of account?
Yeah, you can change the chart of accounts. Like, I mean, you can change the names and stuff and move it into a subcategory if you wanted to make, you know, you can move stuff out of a subcategory. So like, for example, if you wanted to look at this one and I just unchecked it, I don't want this part to be a subcategory, I can do that. Or if you wanted to make it to a subcategory, you can do that. Move it around if that's what you're asking. Yes, you can do that.
Can I bring over history from another accounting software?
I don't know what QuickBooks capability is in integrating from other ones. I do not know.
With the long-term liability from a business loan, you receive cash and have to pay the debt. I am making 2 account changes or just one.
Well, a part of your debt is interest and principal, so you have to allocate between interest and principal. Interest expense and principal. Principal would be going against debt. Hopefully that answers your question.
Next question. I'm currently using HoneyBook, which has many of the same accounting features as QuickBooks. Are they compatible, and do you know which one is better?
I'm not familiar with HoneyBooks, honestly. There's obviously a lot of different types of software out there that does do accounting. There's, you know, Online Zero or whatever. I'm not familiar with the compatibilities of other software with QuickBooks. We don't go there, so you would have to call QuickBooks on that, honestly.
How do you record non-paid invoices?
Non-paid invoices. Well, if you didn't get paid, why would you record it? I don't understand. May need to elaborate. Maybe I'm missing something.
The desktop make backup about the data or online only? Not sure.
No, you can, you're asking if you can back up the desktop. Yes, you can. You go to backup, you create local backup. And then you can do a local backup online. I think online you have to pay a fee, but you can do a backup to, like, say, a flash drive or whatever. Online, here's the thing you have to remember with online, I found out recently, your subscription does not include backup. You have to pay extra. So make sure you're aware of that. Found that out very recently. It's kind of BS, if you ask me. It's online, should back up, you would think, but it's how QuickBooks makes money.
It looks like that's all of the questions.
Okay, all right. Well, I think this hopefully has given everyone a really good opportunity to, here's my contact info, if to understand accounting software and importance of it, obviously. Very important to make sure that you're using it effectively and using it to track your income expenses. The best part is that when it comes to tax time, all you have to do is run a report. You don't have, as long as it's done throughout the year, done accurately. and record and just provide it to your tax professional to be able to prepare their taxes. As long as it's done accurately. There's a lot of nuances around it. So, I mean, if you're good at it, then great. If you're not good at it, please get a professional to do it because it's not worth the headache if you're not going to do it correctly, So, because then you have your tax returns prepared incorrectly, can be potential for an audit. If it's not done correctly, I mean, there's different flags that the IRS has, and then you have to, if you do it incorrectly, find there's an error, you got to amend it, so it costs you more money. So just kind of all those things I just want you guys to think about. But anyways, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to come today to this seminar. Hopefully, it was everyone got a good overview of QuickBooks and what it can do. I don't work for QuickBooks. I don't get paid from QuickBooks. So I'm not like a sponsor of QuickBooks, but it's pretty much most accountants tend to use QuickBooks. It's one of the best accounting softwares out there. That's why we, talk about QuickBooks. But of course you can use any software you want. This gives you an idea of what you're supposed to do. They all have something similar, with different capabilities, but it just gives you an idea. Okay. That's it for me.
All right, thank you. To receive credit for today's webinar, please go to our website at chicago.gov/BACP certificate. Again, that's chicago.gov/BACP certificate. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.